Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies, inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hey, this is Jason Kleberg from the Force 5 podcast, a show that forces a guest to come up with a movie-themed top 5 list topic, and then we reveal our picks on air. Top 5 heist films, top 5 tearjerkers, top 5 movie dogs. Every show you'll be asking yourself, what would be on my list? Guests include directors, screenwriters, actors, podcasters, musicians, authors, and even a professional wrestler. Subscribe to the Force 5 podcast, and you won't just be a listener, you'll be a list nerd. The Force 5 podcast, available wherever you're listening now.
The nightmare of childhood.
Welcome to Wake Up Heavy, my weird dad's weird podcast about weird movies.
Hello and welcome to Wake Up Heavy Recollections of Horror. This is Mark, your host, and today I will be talking about Philip Ridley's 1990 prairie gothic, The Reflecting Skin. I think I saw this movie back in 1991. I'm not 100% sure about that. When I do the show, the main episodes are those movies that I have a long history with. The Why Didn't I Rent This series is about movies that I was aware of but never rented. And, new discoveries. I've been doing episodes on all these different films and categorizing them, and that's just how my brain works. And for this movie, I came across it again a year or so ago on the Horror Movie A Day blog. I recognized the title. I kind of remembered the storyline a little bit. It wormed its way into my head, and I tried to track it down, which wasn't easy. It's not a movie that was readily available, at least through any streaming services. And the DVD that had come out a couple of years prior was going for pretty high prices on Amazon. Suffice to say, I found it and watched it, and immediately with the first scene, I thought I had to have seen this movie. This is hitting memory receptor cells so hard. So it's an odd movie. I'm not sure how to describe it. It was something that I remember reading a lot about. It kind of made a splash when it came out. It was a very divisive film. A lot of critics and audience members loved it. A lot of critics and audience members hated it. And a lot of people were just perplexed by it. And that's like so much up my alley. It's not even funny. I have a made-up memory of reading about it in Film Comment, and I went through their back issues recently, and I could not find an article. That doesn't mean there wasn't one, but it wasn't listed on their website in any of these issues from 1990 through 92. So I don't know. I have a feeling that some friends of mine rented it years ago, or I may have rented it on my own, but that first scene of the movie and then a few others had me thinking I had to have seen this. It's that, or I just read a bunch about it. It could be either way, it doesn't really matter. But if you've listened to this show at all, you know that nailing that down is somewhat important to me. Regardless of all that, in 1990, as I've mentioned, I was in school in London, And a couple of the guys that I was there with and I had kind of crafted a plan to go to the Cannes film. Is it Cannes or Cannes? I can never remember. I want to say Cannes, but I think it's Cannes. The Cannes Film Festival, because that happens in May every year. And our semester was over, I think, late April. And we all had Eurail passes and all that. And I think we tried to call their offices at one point. We were checking out the train schedules. We found out what dates it was going on. I think the main motivation for me was that I knew that Wild at Heart was playing. I don't know, even if we had managed to get there, I don't know if the general public is even allowed to purchase tickets. I still don't know that to this day. I kind of doubt it. It didn't happen regardless. Plans change. Everybody came up with different plans for their traveling, and I ended up going home early, actually, because of that. And if I had gone in this alternate timeline, it's very possible that I would have seen the movie there. It played out of competition. It wasn't up for any of the major awards, and it created quite a stir and was one of those films that half the audience gave it a 5-minute standing ovation and half the audience walked out and stuff like that. And a French film critic turned to Philip Ridley, the director of the movie, and said that he had an instant cult film on his hand. And now, of course, he said it in French, and it sounds much better, but I'm not even going to attempt that. And so it had a little buzz, but it just didn't have, I think, the backing of the studio or of any distributors. It played festivals. It played across America and probably Canada and the UK in spotty distribution. And then it was released on video, and that didn't last very long either. So it's this movie that if you saw it back then, if you were lucky enough to see it, it struck a chord and then it disappeared. And I think that's what happened with me. So it's a new favorite of an old movie that just didn't really have much of a chance. And of course, it's playing on Shudder right now, so get out there and get your subscription and watch it. Watch the heck out of it. This movie is about 10-year-old...
That doesn't sound right.
How old are you, Seth Dove?
Nearly 9.
Seth Dove and his family, who live in rural 1950s Idaho. They own a gas station, which doesn't seem to get much business these days, which is run by Seth's terminally sad father, Luke, and his religious zealot mother, Ruth. Seth's brother, Cameron, is in the South Pacific running tests for the United States Army. So Seth spends his days running around the wheat fields of Idaho, creating mischief with his friends, Kim and Eben. Seth becomes convinced that his lonely neighbor, Dolphin Blue, is a vampire and that she is responsible for a number of child deaths in the area. When I rewatched this last year, watched it for the first time last year, I can't remember which, what came to mind was if David Lynch had directed Stephen King's Stand By Me, and I think it was partially influenced by how Stranger Things, which was pretty popular at the time, had been described as if Steven Spielberg had directed a Stephen King story. So I had that in my head, but it's more akin to a Ray Bradbury or Flannery O'Connor story, this idea of the prairie gothic. I haven't read it in decades, but we read Dandelion Wine in high school, and it had that sense of the mysteries of childhood and how when you're a child, the unknown and the benign are seen as frightening, and things that we should be afraid of are fascinating. So in Seth's head, a lonely, widowed lady must be a vampire, and an ossified fetus must be a reincarnated angel. And we'll get back to that in a minute. The other influences of the film, beside the director's own paintings, include art by Andrew Wyeth and Edward Hopper, And it has the look and feel of the early films of Terrence Malick, like Badlands and Days of Heaven. And I read in an article a nice description where it described it as Blue Velvet, but with kids. The movie opens with Seth, Kim, and...
That doesn't sound right.
See, I want to say Eben. He's called both in the movie. I think Seth calls his friend Eben, but he's called Eben by everybody else. It's E-B-E-N. They are out in the prairie fields. Seth finds a gigantic bullfrog. They insert a reed in the frog's anus and blow it up like a balloon, put it out on the road, and when Dolphin Blue walks by, Seth hits it with a slingshot and it explodes all over her.
You've been exploding frogs again?
No,
I heard different.
she lied.
Who lied?
The English lady.
Of course, the boys run off, and this kind of becomes a pattern with them, or with Seth on his own, where they antagonize and terrorize her and then run off in terror. Seth turns back and seems to feel some remorse for what he has done. He later finds out that Dolphin Blue's husband committed suicide a week after they were married. She has kept some of his possessions, including a bunch of the tools and weapons that he used as a whaler, and a lock of hair and a tooth of his. And though he does feel sympathy toward her, he is still convinced that she is a vampire. It doesn't help that the pulp novel his dad is reading about vampires has a picture of a woman in a wheat field that looks exactly like her. That is the one thing that kind of bugged me in the movie. It's a little too on the nose. It's dressed and looks exactly like her. Seth takes the things that he learns from his mom and from his dad and kind of twists them up in his child mind to try and relate to the world. And it always comes out confused and conflated.
What's an angel? A baby with wings. Every time you make your ma cry, you kill an angel. I make my ma cry all the time. Sometimes I just look at her and she cries.
So this line about killing angels turns into his believing that the ossified fetus that he finds is the reincarnated angel of his friend who has been murdered. And I don't want to spoil too much about the movie, but one of the main subplots here is about these child killings, mainly child killings. And there is this presence in the movie, and this is one of the other things that I remembered quite distinctly, other than the exploding frog, was the idea of this black Cadillac that is cruising on the dirt roads through these wheat fields throughout the movie. Seth encounters the young men in this black Cadillac at his father's gas station early on in the movie.
Is that your father up there?
Yeah.
He looks like a scarecrow. Are you a scarecrow's son?
No.
I was hoping you were. We'll be seeing you. Would you like that?
Yeah.
Be good now, Seth Dove.
And again, as a child, he doesn't quite get it. He doesn't understand the menace of what they're saying. And yes, I am skirting around the issue of the ossified baby. I don't want to get too much into it. It's one of those really odd things about the movie. Seth takes it home and talks to it throughout. There is no explanation for the baby. You kind of have to just think about the time and the place that they're in for any explanation for that. But yeah, I don't want to get too much into it. It's one of those fascinating things about this film. Seth's brother Cameron finally returns from his duty in the South Pacific. Seth notices that he has changed and is disturbed when he finds out that Cameron is falling for Dolphin Blue. They share a melancholy sadness that Seth does not understand. His brother appears to be getting sicker and sicker. He starts to lose his hair and get really thin. And of course, Seth attributes this to Dolphin Blue's vampirism. The murders continue in the town. Seth believes it's Dolphin Blue. The police believe that it is Seth's father. because of an indiscretion he had years earlier with a 17-year-old boy. Seth's father immolates himself, and this drives his mother deeper into religious hysteria, which even Cameron's return cannot get her out of. Even though Seth's father is dead, as the killings continue, the police chief thinks that he is still around and committing these crimes. And this is where we get to meet some of our quote-unquote Lynchian characters. The police chief, and I'm not sure exactly what his title is, but he has an eye patch, one fake hand, and half of an ear missing. And all of these things have happened due to animal attacks. And he has kind of a long conversation with Seth at one point and explains how all of this happened. And although Lynchian in matter, it's not... everybody acts naturalistic. We don't have that kind of really mannered acting or line reading like we have in a Lynch movie. At one point when Seth is walking down the road, he encounters a set of twins in long black dresses carrying a goose or a duck. And if you have been watching a series of unfortunate events on Netflix, you will recognize these two ladies. Cameron tries to explain to Seth that his illness is due to the testing that he was taking part in for the Army that involved the detonation of atomic bombs. He shows Seth a picture of a baby who suffered from radiation fallout, and this is where we get the title of the film. And I won't explain that. It's quite disturbing and touching at the same time. And of course, as a child does, he's not really understanding the information that Cameron is telling him, but he has a million questions about the baby.
Is he alive?
Mm-hmm.
You know him?
No, it's just a photograph.
Who's holding him?
I don't know.
Do you have any brothers like you're my brother?
I don't know. I don't know him, Seth. It's just a picture.
What's his name?
I don't know him. I don't know his name. It's just a photograph, okay?
Well, he must have had a name.
And this again shows that childlike understanding or misunderstanding of things in the world. And I relate to this. There are a couple memories I have of childhood, and I'm not exactly sure if they're memories or if they were dreams that I had, and after years and years and years, took them on as memories. I remember driving home from church one day. I was looking out the window, and I saw a couple of dudes working on their muscle car in their driveway. And at some point, this big explosion of sparks shot out of the engine block, and the guy that had been leaning over backed away quickly, and I didn't get to see the whole picture as we passed. And I remember not saying anything. I don't know what the fear was. I could have said, I think that guy just got burned back there. I don't know what we would have done. He was with a friend. But anyway, it was just a weird experience. Like I felt that I couldn't say something to my parents. Like it wasn't my business to say it, or it was too strange a thing to bring up. I don't know. It was, and again, I don't even know if it really happened or if it was a dream. When I was much younger, I remember a visit to the doctor, and I came out, and there was a kid sitting in a wheelchair waiting to be seen. And my memory is that he had an extremely large head, hydrocephalic or something of that nature. And again, I didn't say anything. I just kind of looked at him and was fascinated and horrified at the same time, because I didn't understand what it was that I was seeing. Don't think I asked my mom, as kids do, what's wrong with him or what. I knew better to not do that, but I never did express that even as we left the office. Like, what do you think was wrong with that kid or anything like that. And so keeping it inside and holding on to that for years, it becomes a memory or a memory of a dream, and I can never quite figure out which. I should probably note here that in this memory and or dream, this little guy was wearing a 3-piece suit. So that kind of leads me to believe that it may have been something I imagined or dreamed, or that part of it is something that I inserted later. And I guess how this relates to the movie, if it does at all, is just how these images, these encounters that I had, I didn't have context for at my age, and that is probably why I didn't say anything. And so I created kind of a myth around those images for myself. And that's what Seth does throughout the movie with all the strange things that he encounters. At the end of the film, Seth realizes that this nightmare of childhood that he's going through has caused the tragic end of people that he cares about, and it's that knowledge that this is the world and your future looks like this that he kind of rails against in the last shot. He has one last encounter with the greasers in the black Cadillac.
You want to ride, Seth Dove?
No, not yet.
And this kind of signifies to me that this is his future. They are who he will end up becoming. And if childhood is a nightmare, adulthood don't get much better.
Poor Seth. It's all so horrible, isn't it? The nightmare of childhood. And it only gets worse.
Jeremy Cooper plays Seth. I had written down in my notes when I watched the movie that he reminded me of kind of an inverse of Ralphie in A Christmas Story. He's got a cherubic face, little bowl cut, but he's got jet black hair versus Ralphie's towhead. And they're kind of mischievous in the same way, but Seth's is a little more, he leans a little bit more towards the macabre, I guess. And he didn't do much else acting-wise, Jeremy Cooper. There are 5 credits under his name on IMDb. His parents are played by Duncan Fraser, who has a very long list of credits. He's been in all kinds of stuff, as has Sheila Moore, who plays Seth's mother. And she was in the original It miniseries as Eddie Kasprak's mother. We have Lindsay Duncan as Dolphin Blue, and you will recognize her face immediately. Again, very long career. She has been in tons of movies and TV shows, including A Discovery of Witches, which is something that I want to look into, a series that is on Shudder based on, I think, young adult novels, or a series of novels, I should say. And last, but certainly not least, is Viggo Mortensen. This was one of his first leading roles. So all you gals out there, that is one more reason to go and watch this movie. Little baby Viggo. As I mentioned, the director, Philip Ridley, only has 3 feature-length film credits in his name. He wrote the screenplay for the movie The Craze, which came out in 1990, starring the twin brothers that were in Spandau Ballet, I believe. Ridley is an author, most noted for his children's books. He is a painter. He is a musician. He is a playwright, and what else? Filmmaker. Exactly the kind of person that you love to hate. Why does he have so much talent? Spread the wealth, buddy. So please run out and see this. This gets my highest recommendation. I know that I will be watching it again very soon. Okay, coming up for Wake Up Heavy. Yes, I have decided on the season opener for season 2. And that is Taxi Driver, but it's going to be a while. I'm rounding up people to talk to. Mike White from the projection booth has agreed to talk to me again, so that's a good sign. I didn't totally blow it on the Eraserhead episode. Within the next 2 weeks, though, I have planned a couple of short episodes like this. One is on the movie Handgun, aka Deep in the Heart, which is a new discovery for me. that I found out about because of the podcast 80s All Over. It is a fascinating rape revenge story that is not an exploitation film like I Spit on Your Grave or some of the others. And then leading up to the Taxi Driver episode, I hope to do another short one on The Little Girl Who Lives Down the Lane, which is a childhood favorite of mine, starring Jodie Foster, and the connection there is with Taxi Driver, of course. Those two movies came out the same year. I do not have a Patreon episode currently planned, but who knows what will pop into my head at any given moment to supply me with a fresh idea and obsession to twist around in my head until I get it out on, well, this isn't really tape, so get it out on GarageBand, I guess, for the podcast. If you have any suggestions for Patreon episodes, my one Patreon subscriber, please let me know. And that is it for today. Thank you very much for listening. Go out and watch The Reflecting Skin. And don't forget to wake up heavy.